Here's a fun bit of Trofun lore. This channel was actually started as a way to force myself through my backlog. And, well, it didn't, but we're starting it today. I have a friend that's been badgering me to play Tales of Arise pretty much since the day it came out, which wasn't that long ago, surely. It's been a busy 3 years, okay? So I finally decided to sit down and play my third, I think, Tales of game. Oh, and I platinumed it too, because of course I did. You've been here before, and if you haven't, hello. Now, as always, I'm not going to go super deep on the plot because this is a trophy video and it's not super relevant to that, but I'm not going to be as spoiler avoidant as usual because the game is years old, and if you're worried about spoilers, you should have played it by now, frankly. So anyway, the main story took me between 35 and 40 hours. Worth mentioning, I was doing side quests as they became available, but some I was unable to. Reason being is that this game doesn't shy away from giving you quests that you are far too underleveled to complete. For an example, right at the start of the game you get a quest to defeat a level 41, I think it was 41, boss Mantis enemy. I'm standing there like, guys, I'm level 7, I don't really fancy our chances here. I briefly thought about coming back to it later, but I decided, nah, I'd win, and gave it a good old go. I did not in fact win. The game does this a lot, and it's really not helped by the fact the game does not give you any indication of the enemy's level before you get into battle. Unless you count the amount of money you get as a quest reward, you can kind of gauge the level range based on that, but it is far from a flawless method. That is maybe my biggest nitpick with the game, the lack of levels for side quests. So yeah, I did most side quests, but not the ones that were obviously way too high level for me. I also found a good number of the owls, like 30 or so I'm gonna say. They aren't especially out of the way. I also did the 50 ranch harvests. That one was a complete accident. I was just doing it whenever I could and ended up getting it. I mean, no, it was totally planned for the most optimal route, planned out tremendously. Definitely what was going on. One thing I am a sucker for though in this game is how the battle quotes change and get nicer as you go through the game, reflecting how the party is starting to like each other more. Love stuff like that, little touches, love it. But yeah, first playthrough went great. I liked the game, totally thought it was going to end halfway through, but hey, that's on me for not realizing the mountain of unanswered questions at that point. Really easy to notice that in hindsight, but at the time, didn't cotton on at all. Didn't mention this before, but I did not touch a guide before beating the game, so I didn't see any spoilers, which is good. But after the game though, I'm fine with a bit of help. The first thing I did though was those quests that I skipped because I was too low level, or in some cases instructions were unclear and I wanted to get on with the story, like the Ritter one in the 4th area I'm gonna say. Some of these quests had bosses that gave trophies for beating, so that was also pretty tickety-boo. Really surprised some of these weren't in the main story, like Big Bird or the Temple one. They were pretty damn cool, why hide them away in side quests? I did use a guide for the side quests, but it didn't really help with the bosses. It was more for things like where to buy tofu. No one can tell me where that is off the top of your head, and if you claim to, I won't believe you. Anyway, going through the side quests, eventually I got to one where you go through the portal and see characters from previous games. This is another thing I'm absolutely a sucker for, unashamedly so. It's nostalgia baiting fan service, but I am cool with that personally. As an example, I love Sonic Generations, and that's a whole game that's just a nostalgia trip. As I said earlier, I don't have nostalgia for this series really, but I'll admit that even I popped off when Edna and Aizen showed up for the first time. I was like, I know those guys, I played their games, I know who they are. Best part about this quest though is just how many levels you get from doing it. I reckon I must have got over 30 levels, which is loads, and answered my question as to how hard level 100 was going to be. That being not very. There's also the boss rush final quest. Not really a fan of this personally, but it is a side quest, so fine, whatever. Pretty difficult, but not too bad with a stock of items. After that, I finished off the missing quests that didn't show up until you go to specific areas, and also gathered all the owls. I used a guide just to speed this up, so I didn't have to run around like a lemon for hours. Oh, and then I did the ultimate arena fight. Took a few tries, but once I put on accessories that reduced the amount heals take to cast, I got it the very next attempt. I did do the other solo arena fights while I was here, except for Rimwell's last one, because screw doing solo mage. Never fun in any game, and you can quote me on that. After that, I got to level 100 by fighting the Kronos guy a few times. I did lower the difficulty for this just to make it faster. I had beaten him previously on a proper difficulty. No one's going to hold this against me, I am sure. After that, I did fishing, because we all know it's not a real video game unless it has fishing. Nothing to really say on it, I just looked up the locations, it's fishing. If I wanted to do fishing, I'd play Sonic Adventure, the best fishing game ever made. During all of this, I was getting skills and crafting weapons for those trophies, only had to go out of my way to get materials for like 4 weapons, so that was good. That left just the 300 skits, and obviously I'd gotten a fair amount just going through the game, but boy was I not counting to see how many I was missing. This didn't take too long really, I literally just cooked a few meals with specific characters to get special skits for that. Then, we wait. We wait because after all this, I still hadn't seen all of the bonding events, which to my understanding have a real world hour wait between them. So I just had to wait for several hours to get the last bonding events for my final trophies and finally the platinum. I just left the game on and did other stuff. Annoying, but not the end of the world. I had a lot of fun with the game, wasn't too long, even adding all the trophies and post-game to it took me about 56 hours, which is nice. Not every JRPG needs to be 80 plus hours just to beat Atlus. With that though, my friend could finally stop badgering me to play this game. You know what? I'ma tell him right now. Hello? Hey, I beat Tales of Arise finally. Oh nice, Beyond the Dawn as well? Hello? Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn is the big DLC expansion for the game that came out a couple years after the game did. It is just fine. I found the main story to be just alright, but I more enjoyed just seeing the changes to the world brought about by the main game's ending and also just what the main characters and also side characters have been up to. There's not much to talk about when it comes to trophies though, it is very straightforward. I did read some side quests might be missable, but they're easy to do as soon as they become available, so it's only a concern if you're the type to leave all the side quests for the post-game. Some of them need materials from using the specific correct character skills on enemies, which I found a bit of a pain. I think you technically can get it without using them, but it's guaranteed if you do. No idea if the main game also worked like this. It probably did, but I never noticed it or needed to notice it. I was doing all the side quests and stuff as I went along, and so by the time I got to the final boss, I was only missing 2 trophies for completing the DLC and the ultimate arena fights. So I decided to detour to do that to end on the ending rather than some random arena battle. It's more fitting that way, don't you think? Didn't struggle at all, it's basically the same as the main game, if not exactly the same. On the whole actually, I found the DLC noticeably easier than the main game. This could be because it actually is, or due to the fact that I'd already gone through the main game and had a better idea what on earth I was doing. It took me about 14 hours to do the whole DLC, so a decent extension but not super long on its own, and it brings the total time to about 70 hours. Overall though, this was a nice little epilogue. One last adventure with the characters. It's not my favourite DLC or anything, in case you were wondering, it's Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed, but I did enjoy it, and the trophies were fun and easy, which I'm sure is what you were here for. I would like to just give some final thoughts on the game away from trophies before ending the video as sort of a concluding paragraph if you will. Like in English class, you know, you have to do your conclusion at the end. Overall feelings, pretty positive. I don't know how the Tales of fanbase feels about the game, but I had a really good time. Characters were likeable and, more importantly to me, believable as to their attitudes changing throughout the game. Like it wasn't 1 minute, I hate you, and then the next they were best friends. It was paced nicely, I thought. Speaking of pacing, I did have a bit of an issue with the second half of the game in regards to that. It wasn't a huge issue, but there really were a lot of exposition scenes in the second half. I think that's obvious with the lesser amount of dungeons you do in the second half. There's only like 3 for the same amount of game time. Again, not the end of the world, but something I did think worth pointing out, even just as a nitpick. Should probably mention gameplay, that's quite important in a video game. I liked it, but boy some battles felt like they went on for too long. Just in general, I'm getting to the point where big numbers are more annoying than anything challenging. Like I'm not in danger of dying at any point, it just takes forever. Overall though, really not many complaints with the gameplay. Though admittedly, I didn't really switch around playable characters. To be completely honest with you, I didn't realise you could switch characters mid-battle until about 70% through the game. Yes really, I'm not smart. Beyond the Dawn though, I will be honest, it's kind of unnecessary. That doesn't mean it's bad, but it's unlikely to change your perspective on the game or anything. As I said earlier, it is one last adventure with the characters, which I think is fine, it does that job pretty well. So yeah, overall on the game, big ol' thumbs up. And that's the video. Have you played or platinumed this game? How about others in the same series? Let me know all that in the comments, and while you're down there, why not like and subscribe? It's free and helps out small channels like mine a ton. As I said, I had a lot of fun with this game. Jokes aside, I actually have been meaning to play it for yonks, and I'm glad to finally get around to it. Maybe this whole YouTube to help me with my backlog thing might actually work. Thank you for watching. For now though, I'm off. Hunt them tropes. And I'll see you next time.